The ability to manage your own mind and emotions is probably one of the single most important, and maybe the second is the ability to influence others, because that's what makes you a leader. And hopefully you're doing that for a higher good, because there are all kinds of leaders, as you know. But I don't think most people are very good at emotional fitness. Most people are just not as happy as they could be. So I think that skill set is the most important one, because it's really about the power of the mind. So most people don't understand the power of the mind. Here are the things that you can do to take control of your mind, because if you take care of your body and then you don't take care of your mind and emotions, you're going to be miserable. Yeah. Unless you can push through discomfort. Most things that are going to give you the greatest reward require discomfort initially. The discomfort, it's like, my original teacher, Jim Rohn, used to always say, there's two pains in life, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. He goes, discipline weighs ounces, regret weighs tons. So I'd always be in reaction until I trained my brain to say, no, problems are a sign of life and all they are challenges to be solved. And what makes you a great leader is your ability to solve problems or teach teams to build a culture where they can solve problems. And so it gives me this tremendous creativity and flexibility, but I've got the base of energy to make it work. Decisions are, first you're going to decide what to focus on. Every moment of your life, there's something grabbing your focus, and you don't experience life, you experience the part of life you focus on, right? What's wrong is always available, so is what's right, right? And there are different kinds of focus. And then the second decision you make about once you focus on something is, what does it mean? Is this the end or the beginning? If you think it's the end of a relationship, you're going to behave different than it's the beginning, right? And so then the third decision is, what do I do? Which, whatever meaning you come up with creates the emotions, which affects what you do. He said, you got to think of it as one thing. It's all about adding value. How can you do more for others than anybody else in the world? And that stuck with me. I mean, I was just like, I decided I wanted to do more for others than anybody in the world. In order to do that, I had to have certain skills, and I went after those skills, and I still do. Like, it's a never-ending thing. If you think you're a master, you're full of it, right? Yeah. So I think that's probably some of the best advice I've received, at least on life and business and direction, and it affected my mission. Yeah. Anything that you persist in long enough, you can find the answer to, I believe. The Mayo Clinic did a study. In 2017, they took 286 patients with various diagnoses, and they took the first diagnosis and then they had a second doctor do a diagnosis. Only 12% of the time did they match. That means 88% of the time, the first diagnosis and the second were different. As a result, the Mayo Clinic says you should always get a second opinion, and they believe getting a second, even a third one, refines the diagnosis and makes it better, because everyone's working through their perceptions. It's not, we think of medicine as like black and white, it's right or it's wrong. And it's a lot of art in medicine. And people don't realize that. And that's why the standard of care doesn't always get the result they want. That's why these breakthrough doctors, beyond the standard of care, they were attacked, some of them in the beginning. Like, there's a man named Dr. June in there who created these CAR T cells. And I think it's Nature just did a publication 10 years later. They're still, in cancer, they never call it a cure. They're actually calling it a cure for the first time for liquid, like leukemia and things like liquid cancers. And it's like, it's amazing. So you've got to understand that there's more than one opinion, and you don't give up too easily with just one. Yeah. I always say it's like, if it's about your health, if it's about your relationship, if it's about raising your children, if it's about your spiritual development, those are areas where people should be your coach, not your commander. Yes. Get lots of input and you decide, because they could be sincere and be sincerely wrong. If you're wrong, at least you learn from your own experience. What gives somebody power in any context? It's three things. It's pattern recognition. So if I'm great at running businesses, as I am today, I'm pretty good at it. It's like, I recognize there's only so many patterns. I know what to do. I can anticipate, not react. I can grow it. If you're great in, let's say, the stock market, you know to recognize patterns. If you're great with music, you recognize patterns. If you're great spiritually, you recognize patterns. But the second skill is you don't just recognize them, you can use them. And then the third skill is when you've recognized and used enough patterns, you start to create them. And that's a different dimension of what's going on. Humanity changed when we recognized the pattern of the seasons. As soon as we understood seasons, we didn't have to be wandering through the desert anymore, searching for things. We could stay, we could grow crops, because we found out if you plant in the winter, it doesn't matter how hard you work, nothing happens. But when you know the right time to plant, when you know how to do the right thing at the right time, then all of a sudden humanity grew into communities and cities and states and everything else. Well, we have also seasons of our life. So, in some of the traditional, let's say, Indian philosophies, I'm sure you know, we can look at these 4 stages, but we can look at it and say, the first 20 years of your life, roughly, you're primarily learning and taking things in. Some of us had to work at 5 years old and so forth, but overall, that's how it is. From 20 to 40, that's springtime. Summer, you're figuring out who you are. Okay, they told me all this crap, nobody test it. Do I really believe that? Does it really work? I now have real relationships. I think I'm invincible, maybe I'm not, if I discover. 20 to 40 is this massive growth period in your life. And if you grow during that time, 40 to 60 is really a reaping time, right? It's like the fall and the autumn, and things come together and things go great. And then from 60 to 80 and maybe 80 on, if you have an extended winter, that's the winter time where now you get to be kind of an elder. So everyone is going to hit winter if they live long enough. Meaning some people experience winter in that 0 to 20 stage, some people 20 to 40. When you experience it, shapes your life a lot. But what I try to tell people, and hopefully helps them, is winter does not last forever. No pandemic has lasted forever. No war has lasted forever. And what's next is springtime. Now, if you were God, wouldn't you work it out that way? After the vicious night, you have this beautiful day. After the tough winter, there's this nice springtime. So the goal right now is to get strong in winter, not to fold. If you can be strong in this season, in your business, in your life, then when springtime comes, it's a piece of cake. And if you do well in business during this time, if you look at the Fortune 1000, 65% of them were born in a winter, in a depression or a recession. Wow. Whether it's Exxon or it's Disney and depressions, or whether it's Pizza Hut or Federal Express that was done in a recession, or Apple or Microsoft in a recession. So if you do well then, you tend to do well through time. And so this is a time, not to say, oh, it's winter, I'm gonna freeze to death. It's like, no, it's a time to learn, grow, expand, spend time with your family, snowboard, take advantage of the season, and don't think the season is forever. What you start seeing is there's patterns here. There's patterns in history. This isn't forever. How do I use what's in front of me instead of freaking out and saying, oh my God, the whole world's coming to an end? Because it looks like that when the dark night of the winter happens, or the dark night of the soul.